we're going to video today. So how's that going, Dan?
We're on.
Okay. Yep. Yep, that's it. Good morning. My name is Paul Campanis. That's a long Greek last name. And it's great to be here. It's December 2nd, 2018 at Brentwood United Methodist Church. And yes, sir, I have a question already.
What's it shortened down from, if I might ask you?
Pardon me?
What is it shortened down?
Oh, thank you. That's a good question. When my family came into Ellis Island, well, I guess it'd be my grandfather around 1914.
Is that right?
They, that's a story, but how much time do I have?
Plenty of time.
How many minutes?
Let's say you get the whole thing if you need it.
Well, what's the whole thing?
45 minutes.
Okay. So he got to Ellis Island. He was didn't want to be drafted into the Turkish army because that's what they were doing in Greece. And his name was Kambani, which is, there is no letter C in Greek, but they use the letter C. And then it was Kambani with B, and they changed the B to a P. But that means bell ringer in Greek. Bell ringer. So that was the person that would ring the bell to come to church.
My own story. My grandfather was Stavros Lambropoulou, shortened down to Lampros, Ellis Island, 1910.
Oh, wow.
And if you want, if you look up in the Ellis Island archives, you can look up that name, as I have, and you can see, you can find it, as they listed. And I found my grandfather.
Yeah, I found mine.
Who was living here at that time and sponsored it, and they brought him back over.
Yeah.
So shortened down from Lambropoulou to Lampros.
Yep.
So that's why I asked the question.
Yeah, it was a good question. Glad. So, are you're Greek?
My mother.
Yep.
You know, my father married my mother and did not quite know what he was headed into. He discovered quite later.
Yep.
Well, that's another story too.
Yeah, that's another story. But I inherited my grandparents' estates in Greece, and I go back quite often. So, you know, it's just a small world in many ways. So, thank you for the opportunity to be here. It's really a privilege to be in this class. I remember Stacy and many of you from before, and I know there are a lot of people here that could teach me a thing or two about Bible study and about prayer and things we're going to talk about. But let's have a great discussion, and it's my prayer that you'll be inspired today. The topic today is fasting. Is anyone here familiar with fasting? The topic of fasting, Mary Lou, you are, yeah. And it's a topic that sort of gets glossed over. It's a hard teaching. I mean, everyone loves their food. I love my food, and I'm going to have a great lunch after this. And food's awesome. We enjoy our food, and we like our food. We look forward to our food. And then when you start talking about fasting, it's like, whoa, And I sort of grew up as a Christian seeing, a lot of fasting in the Bible. Jesus fasted 40 days, and I looked at that, and I said, that's really strange, Why would he do that for so long? I could never do that, I thought to myself. And my heart got a little hard. And I said, I'm not going to look into that. I don't really want to know about that. But God uses my wife in many ways in my life. The Bible says that she's a suitable helper. Melanie's here, by the way, and she's going to be chiming in. So she's going to get up, and sometimes I don't tell things exactly the way I'm supposed to. And she'll come up and she'll correct things, and she'll add a lot. But my wife was fasting. And I thought, well, this is really close to home, and this is really, unusual. And she was studying the Bible and fasting and just having a really good experience. And I thought, well, I'd be miserable if I did that. So I sort of started to study it and to understand it. But I wanted to start out with a really great passage, and I've been looking for a great opportunity to use this passage because it's a Christmas sort of passage, and it's a really spirited single in the Bible. Has anyone ever heard of Anna and Luke? Mary Lou has? Yep. And I think this is such an inspiring passage. So I'm going to read it. It's Luke chapter 2, verse 36 to 38. And so just to give you a little background here, Jesus has been born, and he's coming to the temple to be circumcised. And so Joseph and Mary are bringing Jesus through the doors of the temple and into the temple there to get circumcised and to do what the law required. And this guy Simeon comes on the scene and just makes this amazing prophecy about Jesus. And you're probably very familiar with Simeon's prophecy about Jesus and all the wonderful things he said. But underneath Simeon, sort of lost there, is the prophetess Anna. And so I'm going to pick it up here in verse 36. There was also a prophetess Anna, the daughter of Phanuel, of the tribe of Asher. She was very old, and she lived with her husband 7 years after her marriage, and then was a widow until she was 84. She never left the temple, but worshipped night and day, fasting and praying. Coming up to them, this is Joseph, Mary, and Jesus, the baby. Coming up to them at that moment, she gave thanks to God and spoke about the child to all who were looking forward to the redemption of Jerusalem. And so here we have this prophetess Anna. She's a spirited single. She was a widow, and she spent all of her time in the temple worshiping God, fasting and praying. And what does the Bible say she talked about? She talked about Jesus. And as a prophetess, she might have, had the foreknowledge to know that this was the Christ. And, you can just sort of picture that scene there. And this woman, so devout. And, as I get older, as I sort of move, from working to, I'm not retired yet, but, as I do that, as my kids sort of grow up and leave the house, I feel sort of a tremendous loss of purpose. Like, my kids don't need me anymore. Well, of course they need money, but and I'll get those calls, and that's fine. I don't mind that.
Got one yesterday.
At least they call. I call it a margin call. And Dad, I need this, and Dad, I need that, and I love doing that. And but I see my sense of purpose really changing. When I was young, the women in church would move. They'd move from one church to another, one house to another house, and I'd go and pack my trailer or my truck, and I'd move them up the stairs, and I'd get all that furniture in there. But no one calls me to help them move anymore. And I used to do a lot of computer work and things like that, and financial work, and I don't do as much of that anymore. But as we get older, and I've really noticed this with my dad, who is 25 years older than me, that our sense of purpose changes. And a lot of times it's tough to move into the new sense of purpose as an elder in the family, in the church. But we see Anna here. She doesn't waste any time, does she? She's in the temple. She's worshiping. She's praying and fasting and talking about Jesus. And that's what I want to be doing when I'm 84 years old. I want to be useful. And I had. So what I found myself doing a lot is praying a lot more and doing a lot less physical work. I have a farm and a sawmill, and I used to get out there and just do everything. But I can't do that as often, as long as I used to do that. I used to go out there, put in a day's work, but I put in a day's work and I take, a day off the next day, that is. Something hurts, my knee will hurt, my back will hurt. And so what I've been doing is asking people if I can pray for them. Because, it doesn't take much effort to get down on my knees and talk to God. It doesn't take much effort. But it does, it does take that sort of spiritual get up and go. And, you have to sort of muster that up, I guess. But physically, I can do it. I can't say I can't pray because my knee hurts or my back hurts, but I can excuse myself from that other work. And so I've sort of been asking people, if I'm with them, I say, well, hey, is there something I can pray about for you? And so I asked my daughter that Monday, because I know she was having finals. She's graduating from Belmont as a nurse. And what can I pray about for you? I text her. These are all text conversations. You don't actually talk in person, If you want to have a relationship with your kids and grandkids, you learn how to use that.
Oh, yeah, you do.
And she goes, yeah, well, I've got tests and I've got all this stuff coming up. And I said, well, yeah, okay, I'll pray for you. And then she says, and this never happens, what can I pray about for you, Dad? Oh, I said, wow. Yeah, I was really, and I was, I've been really working a lot on just my pride, my, feelings of self-importance. You ever get those, And I said, please help me pray for my ungodly pride and that I'll be able to be used by God. I had to speak to a locker room full of boys on Thursday. I was quite nervous about it because it's a tough crowd. You lose that, you can lose that crowd in a heartbeat. And they're giggling and jumping all around. And so I said, I just need prayers. That God will, because they really sense that when you go in there if you're feeling prideful and stuff. And so I was just feeling a bit of intrepidation about that. And so and she says to me, pray that for me too, Dad. and she goes, no, she put LOL, which means laugh out loud. Pray that for me too, Dad. And my daughter, she struggles with that too. She learned it from me, And they always say your children will accentuate or exaggerate the sins that you have. And I've noticed that with all my kids. All the sins that I have, they have in bigger portions. So I think Anna was really seeing a sense of purpose. She was moving into, maybe she had insomnia. Maybe she was poor and didn't have enough money for food. Maybe she didn't have a place to live. I don't know. God might have put her, but I know that God really blessed her with that privilege to see the Christ child. What a great privilege. I mean, what an honor to hold, Jesus in your hands. Or to maybe that he passed it to him, but to look and see Jesus as God becoming man and actually seeing that right up there. That must have been awesome. So God really blessed her. But I struggle. Sometimes I'm very sensitive. Talking about insomnia now. A couple Fridays ago, I took some folks out to eat, and my wife got some really healthy. It's a healthy restaurant. They have this cheesecake. It's coffee flavored, and I had 2 little bites because she was guarding it rather zealously. But I was able to get dairy-free. Yes, so dairy-free. And so I have 2 little bites of this coffee flavored cheesecake, and I'm up till 4 in the morning. I mean, I'm just buzzing. You know how that is.
Was that at Cheesecake Factory? I have to ask.
No, it was at Avo.
It's a healthy vegan.
Really healthy vegan restaurant kind
And
of
it was
place.
Turkish espresso cheesecake.
No,
Healthy real wonder.
No wonder, it's good.
You telling me a healthy restaurant kept you up all night?
That's what I'm telling you.
Keep me up all night.
And so I'm up, I'm laying in bed. Melanie's just having a wonderful sleep. I can hear it. And I said, well, I'm going to pray. Because I'm going to be with God for eternity anyways. I might as well be patient now, and I might as well pray. And I had a lot to do the next day, and so I prayed, and I prayed. And, sometimes it's hard to pray, and sometimes I have an easy time. But I was having a really great time. I prayed for everything. All the people I was going to see the next day. And I got up, and I was exhausted. So we were sitting around having lunch. I had a meeting, and it went really well. And I said, I want you all to know that I was up and we prayed for the meal. And so I think it'd be a good time to say something spiritual. And so I said, I want you to know I was up till 4 in the morning. I prayed for all of you guys. So if you're having a bad day today, don't blame me, blame him. But it was really great. And, and God really moved powerfully, that day. Even though I was really tired, God was moving. The Spirit was moving. All those prayers were just like thrusting me through the day. And I was really tired. I was droopy. But when we're weak, when we're strong, My strength is made perfect through weakness. The Apostle Paul talks a lot about this. Do you have anything to add, hon? Okay. So we got Anna, and we see her great purpose, praying, fasting, night and day, talking about Jesus, and that brings us to fasting. Now, fasting is scary. Fasting can be dangerous if you're not doing it under proper advisement, maybe medically or if you're driving, And there are things about fasting that, are challenging. And, you know, and feel free to get up and get some more coffee cake too while I'm talking, folks. We're not going to be all legalistic about fasting, because, you
I thought
know.
he was going over to look for cheese.
Yeah, no, seriously, get up and if that's what you planned on doing, don't let me spoil the wonderful desserts that we brought in. God's full of grace. He's full of love. He's, you know, and He gave us fasting as a blessing. And I know that's hard to believe, but just try to hang with me on this. He gave us fasting as a blessing, but it is scary. And you know, a lot of times when I'm fasting, I think I'm going to die. You know, I feel really, but what happens, and you know, this is a health class, right, Joe?
Yeah.
So I could talk about the spiritual blessings of fasting, or I could talk about the health benefits of fasting. What would y'all like me to talk about first, or most, or are there any? The spiritual? Pardon?
No.
The health? So, both. Okay, I'll cover both. Okay. So I'm going to talk about spiritual blessings, because I think if we're doing, do you have something?
Well, I was curious. I mean, I'm just wondering how many have actually fasted. How many of you have tried?
No, I've given up.
Where would you
I
do
haven't.
that?
Only when I had to.
I've given up certain things,
Yep.
you know,
Yep.
like wine or something.
Yep.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And I'll talk about the different gradations of fasting.
Yeah.
Certainly, you have different lengths of time you can fast, and then certainly you have different ways to fast, like giving up, like in Daniel chapter 10. It's a great passage there where Daniel gave up choice wine, choice food and wine. I think it's meat and wine, and certain other, the richer part of the diet. He gave that up, and that's a great passage in Daniel 10 because it says there that as soon as he decided to humble himself, God heard his prayers. Really inspiring. And if you need inspiration in your prayer and your fasting, Daniel 10 is an amazing chapter. And there are others. But what I've really found, that when I fast, my body becomes weak. You know, all those things on the to-do list, you know, they just sort of go away. And it's almost like, now I don't want to say this wrong, but it's almost like an out-of-body experience where I'm looking at my life very objectively because I'm not participating in it anymore in the sense of I've got to get this, this, and this, and this done because, you know, I'm fairly incapacitated after the third or fourth meal or whatever. Yeah, I'm just sitting there, and you know, I can go to my desk, I can study my Bible, I can pray, I can talk on the phone, I can do a lot of these things. I'm still fully functioning. But I feel a tremendous closeness to God. And how can I tell you this? Now, it's like the physical dwindles and the spiritual is accentuated. I've become very sensitive. I think like, folks here wear glasses. You know how you put your glass on and you can see and you take your glass off and it's not so clear anymore? It's a bit like that. Or maybe like for those that wear hearing aids, it's a bit like, wow, I put it in, you can hear and you can...
Tell me what you say?
Pardon me. And you can hear, you know, you can really, you know, you can hear again. And it's a bit like that. But there's a certain closeness to God that comes in. And it quiets my spirit. I'm a very, you know, kinetic kind of person, you know. All this energy and I'm doing things and getting things done. And then all that's just sort of, quieted down. And it quiets my spirit. And then I can really start to contemplate spiritual things. I hope I'm making sense. But it also is a very powerful time. I really feel the power. And I feel a mental clarity. Like when I'm making really big decisions, you know, decisions that I've sort of, you know how you have big decisions to make, but you put them off because you just don't have the headspace to make them. You just sort of, I'll deal with that later, Well, all those things just start to come out. And I started dealing with the real heavy lifting of my leadership in the family, my leadership in my companies. All these things I started to deal with, and with just incredible clarity and prayer and Bible study. And I'm just knocking things out, things that have been on my to-do list for years, and been on my desk or in my barn or in my garage, you know, these kinds of things. I'm making decisions and I'm writing them down, and it's sort of like a time to really do the heavy lifting. And then one of the really surprising things that really hit me is when I was in a fast, is I had a lot of people in my life that I hadn't forgiven, and I was angry towards them. And these are 20, 30 years ago. And then the Lord just put on my heart, Paul, you haven't forgiven that person. You know, you haven't, and you know, I've had some rough things happen relationally. I've been through a divorce. I had some really stressful job situations when I was younger, and there was a lot of animosity there. And so what I would do is get on Facebook, look the person up, and just send them a nice message. I hope you're well. You know, just sort of, I would send a blessing in sort of that sort of way. And most of them I didn't hear back from, honestly. A few I did, but it was all gone from me. You know, all that darkness in my heart was turned to light. And there's a tremendous freedom when you forgive someone that you've been denying forgiveness for years and years and years. Tremendous freedom, tremendous relief, tremendous lightness. And I was really encouraged, you know, that I never thought, well, I didn't think I needed to forgive these people because, you know, my pride was blocking that. And then I didn't think I had the heart to do it and the love in my heart to do it. But all of a sudden, this just came out of the blue, all this love and forgiveness for all these people over the years. And so I've reacquainted myself with a lot of old friends and old associates. My relationship with my ex-wife has gotten loads better, and I'm just not holding on to it anymore. It's just gone, and I just can't tell you enough what a blessing that is. You know, it's like it was sort of the things in the Lord's Prayer that sort of kept coming back to me. You know, forgive our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. Give us this day our daily bread. You know, that was another one. I was always worried about retirement and the future and, you know, all these financial things, you know, and I was like, when you don't eat for a while, you start to see, well, hey, I'm not going to die, and everything's going to be all right, and I feel good, and you start to feel like, well, you know, God's in control, He's going to take care of me. Yes, John?
You know, I don't get any of this. The reason I say this, Friday I had to go see a financial advisor, and I skipped lunch. And 15 minutes into the meeting, I'm so cloudy, big tongue, I can't even concentrate on what they're telling me or what's going on.
Yeah.
They had to give me some orange juice to get my blood sugar back
Right.
up.
Right.
So, I mean, I could be there and totally unconscious if I was fasting and didn't eat all day.
Yeah.
And so this obviously doesn't work for everybody.
Yeah, well, let me explain. I'm really glad you brought that up, because that's how most people in this room are feeling, John. Exactly what you said. When I was working, and I come home, and Melanie would be making dinner, and if dinner was 15 minutes late, I'd start getting grouchy and start walking around the kitchen, opening the pots, eating food, and driving my...
I get a sock on the wrist if I wouldn't spoon.
Yeah, and I get smacked on the wrist. Well, you know, there's some fun and banter there. But I was really hungry, and I thought, well, if dinner's 15, I'd ate a big lunch, too. And I was quite heavy. I've lost 80 pounds recently, in the last 4 or 5 years. And I just didn't think I could go another 10 minutes without going into that kitchen and grabbing that food and you know, sort of stealing dinner before she had it ready to go on the table. And that's the way I behaved. And it's exactly, you know, John, if lunch was, you know, if I looked at my watch and it's 12:15, I'd feel like I was going to die. It's exactly how I feel. And it's still, that is still with me. But what happened is God took that away. He instead of having all these cravings, God's given me that spirit of, I don't know what it is, but He gave me just and a lot of it comes from the fear and the stress. So I was living my life very afraid, you know, the next deadline, the next meeting, the next deal, you know, business deal. There was a lot of fear in my life and anxiety. And then there was a lot of stress in my life. And so what I do, John, is when I'm getting ready to fast, I don't do it when I have a meeting with my financial advisor or, maybe an appointment, you know, that's gonna be stressful, or, you know, people are coming at you, you know how people can come at you, you know, the guy fixing the, you know, the plumbing or something. I clear out my schedule and I have this space where I can just be with God, to kneel down, to pray, to sing songs, to play spiritual music, and I create this space. And I'll get to you in a second. It's Judy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, get to you in a second, Judy. And so I take the stress out, and then I find the fear and the stress, that sort of lifts, and then I have a little more faith, just a little more faith. And it started out for me just, you know, having breakfast a little later that day. You know, if I was having breakfast at 9, I'd have it at 10. And then 10 became 11, and then all of a sudden I was skipping breakfast and just eating lunch. And so it was baby steps. And there's, you know, there are blood sugar issues, there's blood pressure issues. Yeah, Judy?
It's probably giving you serenity,
Yeah, yeah.
calmness.
Yeah, and that calmness and Paul don't go together, just to give you that. I'm not the like calm, serene person that, you know, maybe I'm projecting now. It's not me. I was the, you know, I'm from Boston. I love it in the South here, but in Boston it's go, 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 pedal to the metal. And they drive like it too. And I love it here in the South. I love the psychology of, you know, the mentality here. And it's a lot calmer. I love the serenity. But any other questions before Yes, Joe.
I just would add that when I fasted, I'm like John here, yeah, I have the same, as a physiologist, I kind of understand what's going on as far as, you know, the supply of food linked to your physical activity. Our brains use a lot of the food supply that we take in. It's like 60%, but it also, the activity levels that we have are also tied into that. So when I fasted, when I started learning how to fast, I just was like what Paul was saying. I only take a space of time where I know I don't have to do anything, where there's not going to be necessarily any stress, brain-wise or bodily-wise. And the other thing that's helped me, besides the fact that it's scriptural, is that I know physiologically that it's good for the body every once in a while to not have a digestive situation going on, because it allows the internal parts of us to rest along with the outside parts resting. And really that gut is really a self-cleaning organism if you give it some time off from having to take in new food, because when it's lacking food, it'll go through and any of the stuff that's in there that's not supposed to be in there, like the gunk, so to speak, it'll eat that away first. So it's a process when you're taking in water, especially water and fasting, where it'll help your gut to do some of the things they can't do when you're taking food in all the time.
So, how long do you fast? I mean, how many days or hours or?
These guys go a long time, and Melanie she even works out and fasts. I only have gone from like morning to evening myself. Okay.
Just one day?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. So I'm a lightweight compared to these guys.
I'd be a vegetable after one meal.
I used to be that way too, but I did, like Paul's saying, I got more used to it, and then when I framed it in my mind that this isn't necessarily eating away all my muscle mass and that type of thing that they teach you, you know, when you're an athlete. It isn't necessarily doing that. It's actually more like it's eating some of the gunk that's inside you. It's really, it has a benefit to it. Although by the time I got from, you know, early morning to the evening, I was pretty ravenously hungry, you know, but I didn't schedule anything where I had to be on, so to speak. Did you have a question?
Yeah.
It's interesting you bring this up, because really, when you look, you really got to be in touch with your own physiology.
Yeah.
Know what you deal with and what you got to deal with, because then depending on if you're diabetic and you're taking whatever medication or you're insulin dependent, it's going to have a major significant determinant in how you go. Yeah. And that's why, you know, you just got to really look at that. Yeah. And because I can eat something and I think I'm okay with it, and all of a sudden I've shot up to overachieved it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, obviously something's in here that the manufacturer didn't list.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking other times I started a new medication back over the summer, sort of similar to Januvia, it's a newer one.
Yeah.
But I gotta be cautious with it, because it'll drop me down so fast.
Yep.
Yeah, and I gotta make sure, even if I've eaten with this medication, it's like, about 10 o'clock, I'm in trouble.
Yeah.
I can already sense it. And at this point, I'm like attuned enough, it's like, okay. So
Yeah.
now I just take it at night, and I get a better result with it.
Yeah, all of our bodies are in different places. Some of us are under medical care, some of us are not, most of us probably are. And so, it's a good conversation with your doctor, say, I'd like to, is there something you'd recommend, that I could read more about this? But looking at it from the perspective I have now, not the perspective I had before Melanie helped me get started, fasting is a time of rest. The body rests because, you're doing all that food prep, going back to the kitchen, making the food and then eating it, or maybe going out to get it. But all of a sudden, you've got all this time where you can rest. And so we have two types of organs in our body. One's called the organs of assimilation. That's where you eat the food, and like in your stomach is an organ of assimilation. That's processing food. And then you have organs of elimination. Organs like your kidneys, your liver, your colon, your skin. These are organs of elimination. But the organs of assimilation take a lot of energy to work. Like when you have a big meal, like when I have a big meal, I lay on the couch a lot of times, or sit down and rest, or take a little nap. Because all that assimilation takes a tremendous amount of work. And so I noticed that when I fast, that I do have, in some senses of the, at some periods, I have just incredible energy spikes where I'm just like, someone shut that up. He's just, he just keeps